Capcom's most recent mainline Resident Evil game has a lot of mixed opinions. Some loved it, and others don't even consider it a Resident Evil game with its many folklore antagonists. Regardless, it was a very successful game by Capcom that pulled in huge sales, and even made it as a nominee for Game of the Year. Now this game went through many changes before its final design. With that being said, here is all the cut content from Resident Evil 8. The initial design for Lady D was going to be much different than what we ultimately got. Shown here is early art for Lady D. Her concept was a bewitching vampire with giant garden clippers. Originally, the inventory system wasn't going to be a suitcase. Instead, Ethan was going to wear a backpack which would be used to store items. It was also revealed that there was going to be item boxes in the game, so it seems that there was going to be a similar inventory system to Resident Evil 7. Shown here is the original design for Mother Miranda's mutated form, which is quite different from what we ultimately got. The movie poster is a treasure item which was scrapped from the game. It still remains in the game files and can be accessed by data mining. Judging by its inventory description, it would have been acquired somewhere around the reservoir. A well-known leaker named Duskulum just recently tweeted that Moryu's reservoir had a lot of scrapped assets. He stated Moryu's swamplands were trimmed a lot while the game was in development. The area needed some big reworks, but that work was done on other sections of the game instead, so this area didn't receive as much focus. Part of those plans apparently dealt with providing players a more open swamp area to traverse either via land or water, but the water section of the game was said to be home to mermaid-like enemies. These creatures would pursue the players in the water and had an attack that would hit players even if they were on land. In the water, they would swim for you quickly if spotted, and you had to get to patches of land or kill them successfully before they reached you. Even on land, they could be annoying and use this screech attack which stunned and slowed you down for a time. Mermaids weren't the only scrapped enemy prowling the swamps either. There was apparently a stalker enemy, seemingly similar to those seen in the Resident Evil games like tyrants. Whenever the mermaids would screech, they would apparently draw the attention of the creature to further complicate the player's plans. Early plans for Benevito was an idea of a ghost family. The family were rake-thin parents and children wearing strange masks. Donna was also planned to be the doctor of the village, and she would treat all of her patients at her house. The trio of sisters that many people grew fond of wasn't always going to be a trio. There was plans for dozens upon dozens of sisters inhabiting the castle, all ready to feast on Ethan's blood. However, after the trial and error of testing the game's tempo, the Dimitrescu family was ultimately decided to be Alcina and her 3 daughters. Moryu was originally going to have a parasite on his back that was a girl he once had feelings for. Early designs for the Lycans had them looking much different. They were originally called Wolfmen, and there was going to be a scene where the young men of the village drank from a chalice in turn, but this was eventually cut from the game. Heisenberg originally wasn't going to be a single person. Instead, there was going to be a Heisenberg family. The biggest difference is that Heisenberg was originally going to be a twin, and his mother was a subject for brain experiments. Heisenberg's father was going to be the leader of the village, and the boss fight with the mechanical mutation was originally going to be with him. Originally, this guy shown here was going to be Mother Miranda. He was going to transform into a dragon-like monster, but this idea was later used for Lady D's boss fight. Initial ideas for the game's story was switching between the village in modern day and the past, set in medieval times. This could possibly mean that there was going to be a lot of flashbacks throughout the game. Shown here is an early design for the save room. This had a camera used as a save point instead of a typewriter. Mother Miranda was initially going to be a researcher investigating the village's strange creatures. In this stage of development, the old hag was the leader of the village. Shown here is an area that was cut from Lady D's castle. This was where Ethan was going to fight Lady D. The area where we do fight Lady D was initially going to be used as a room to store weaponry. Shown here is a concept art of a scrapped enemy. Its description is a large lichen who commands 2 chained enemies. Initially, Mother Miranda had a throne that was carried by lichens. There was going to be a scene where Mother Miranda sat in her throne and held rose during a ceremony. This ceremony was going to take place at a temple near Heisenberg's factory, which can be seen here. Ada Wong was originally going to make an appearance in the game and was intended to be introduced as a mysterious masked person that saves Ethan from the trial with the family. At the time, she was investigating the village for unknown reasons. Given that we already had Ethan, Chris Redfield with Blue Umbrella, and the BSAA creating bioweapon clones of Chris, a 4th party in the mix likely wouldn't have been too much. But ultimately, Capcom stated she was cut from the game due to many conflicting scenarios. Capcom initially planned for Mia to be in a wheelchair in this game due to the events of Resident Evil 7. Shown here is early designs for grown-up Rose. The one on the left can be seen holding a gun and covered in blood. Maybe Capcom had bigger plans for grown-up Rose other than just appearing at the end. Chris Redfield went through many designs before ultimately going with the trench coat. One initial design for Chris had him visiting the Winters house in civilian clothes. Shown here, we can see an unknown cloaked enemy approaching Ethan on the rooftops. It seems that this scrapped enemy never made it into the game. We can also see Ethan wielding a sword, which is a concept that never made it into the game. In early stages, there was going to be a scene where Ethan runs into Moryu searching for corpses for his experiments. And there you have it, that is all the cut content from Resident Evil 8. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.